Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hammered Corner. I wanted to firstly wish all my subscribers a Merry Christmas, and I hope you're all spoilt with all kinds of numismatic history this year, from coins to books and everything in between. Incredibly, in 6 days will be 1 year since I created the channel, and never did I think that the channel would be what it is today, so thanks to each and every one of you who are on this numismatic journey with me. So for this year's Christmas episode, I will be reading a website article on the ban of Christmas thanks to the Puritans and Oliver Cromwell in the 17th century, whilst looking at some coins of course. Links to Martha Doe's article will be linked below. So crazily enough, Christmas was banned in England for 17 years after the fall of Charles I, and for Scotland it lasted 250 years until they officially made Christmas a public holiday in 1959. So in the mid-17th century, a wave of religious reform transformed the way in which Christmas was celebrated in England. Oliver Cromwell, a statesman and general responsible for leading the parliamentary army during the English Civil War, took over England in 1645. Supported by his Puritan forces, Cromwell believed it was his mission to cleanse the country of decadence. In 1644, he enforced an Act of Parliament banning Christmas celebrations. Christmas was regarded by the Puritans as a wasteful festival that threatened core Christian beliefs. Consequently, all activities relating to Christmas, including attending Mass, were forbidden. Not surprisingly, the ban was hugely unpopular and many people continued to celebrate Christmas secretly. The Puritan War on Christmas lasted until 1660. Under the Commonwealth, mince pies, holly, and other popular customs fell victim to the spirited Puritan attempt to eradicate every last remnant of merrymaking during the Christmas period. In the first half of the 17th century, Christmas was an important religious festival and a time when the English population would indulge in a variety of traditional pastimes. The 25th of December was a public holiday, during which all places of work closed and people attended special church services. The next 11 days included additional masses, with businesses open sporadically and for shorter hours than usual. During the 12 days of Christmas, buildings were dressed with rosemary, holly and ivy, and families attended Christmas Day Mass. As well as marking the day's religious elements, there was also non-stop dancing, singing, drinking, exchanging of presents and stage plays. The population indulged in feasts of roast beef, plum porridge, mince pies and special ale. Twelfth Night, the final day of celebration, often saw fresh bouts of feasting and carnivals. It's no surprise that the daily celebrations often led to drunkenness, promiscuity, gambling and other forms of excess. 16th and 17th century Puritans frowned on what they saw as a frenzy of disorder and disturbance. As well as disliking the waste and debauchery that went along with the celebration of Christmas, the Puritans viewed the festival, Christ's Mass, as an unwanted remnant of the Roman Catholic Church and therefore a tool of encouragement for the discontent community that remained in both England and Wales. They argued that nowhere in the Bible had God called upon these people to celebrate the Nativity in this manner. They proposed a stricter observance of Sundays, the Lord's Day, along with banning the immoral celebration of Christmas, as well as Easter, Whitsun, and Saints' Day. Preferring to call the period Christtide, and thus removing Catholic Mass element, the Puritans reasoned that it should remain only as a day of fasting and prayer. King Charles I had largely supported the existing traditions and festivities, but as control passed to the Long Parliament in the mid-1600s, Parliament set in motion their idea of completely eradicating the celebration of Christmas. Shortly before the Civil War had begun in January 1642, Charles I had accorded Parliament's request to make the last Wednesday in each month a day of fasting. In January 1645, Parliament enlisted the help of a group of ministers to create a directory of public worship, establishing a new organisation of the church and new forms of worship that were adopted and followed in both England and Wales. According to the directory, the population was to strictly observe Sundays as holy days and were not to recognise other festival days, including Christmas, since they had no biblical justification. Oliver Cromwell regarded Charles I as an insurgent secret Catholic who was subverting the Protestant faith. The The Stuart king was deposed and executed by Cromwell in 1649, and for the next 4 years, England was run by Parliament. But Cromwell had other plans. He regarded the current system as ineffective and damaging to the country. Supported by the army, on the 20th of April 1653, he led a body of musketeers to Westminster and forcibly expelled Parliament. He then established himself Lord Protector and moved into the Palace of Whitehall. The spectacular banqueting house is the only complete building of Whitehall to remain standing to this day. The palace was famously taken from Cardinal Wolsey by Henry VIII and acted as a royal residence until the accession of James I. The Puritans believed that you would be welcome into heaven as long as you worked hard in your lifetime. Thus, enjoyment for other enjoyment's sake was highly disapproved of. Cromwell ordered for inns and playhouses to be shut down. Most sports were banned, and those caught swearing would receive a fine. Women caught working in the Sabbath could be put into the stocks. They had to wear a long black dress, a white apron, a white headdress, and no makeup. The men had an equally sober appearance, dressed head to toe in black and sporting short hair. All shops and markets were to stay open throughout the 25th of December, and anyone caught holding or attending a special Christmas service would suffer a penalty. In the City of London, things were even stricter as soldiers were ordered to patrol the streets, seizing any food they discovered was being prepared for a Christmas celebration. Despite imposing such rigid measures on the common people, it appears that Cromwell himself didn't quite live up to his preaching. He liked music, playing bowls and hunting, and after becoming Lord Protectorate, soon took to the high life. For his daughter's wedding, he even permitted a lavish feast and entertainment fit for royalty. Despite the threats and fines of punishment, many continued to celebrate Christmas secretly. The ban had never been popular, and many people still held Mass on the 25th of December to mark Christ's nativity and also mark the day as a secular holiday. In the late 1640s, Cromwell tried to stop these public celebrations and forced businesses to stay open. As a result, violent encounters took place between supporters and opponents of Christmas in many towns, including London, Canterbury and Norwich. Cromwell was Lord Protector until his death in 1658, whereby Charles II was enthusiastically welcomed back to England to take the throne as the country's rightful heir. With the restoration of the monarchy in 1661, Oliver Cromwell was once more a despised figure. Cromwell was originally buried with great ceremony in Westminster Abbey, a famous Gothic church in London that housed the tombs of kings and queens dating back to Edward the Confessor. And after being dug up, Oliver Cromwell's head sat on the spike for over 20 years, and then was remarkably sold to a private collector and was in private collections for over 200 years. Once Charles II was restored to the throne, all legislation banning Christmas, enforced from 1642 to 1660, was dropped, and the common people were once again allowed to mark the 12 days of Christmas. Old traditions were revived with renewed enthusiasm, and Christmas was celebrated throughout the country as both a religious and secular festival. And unfortunately for Scotland, Christmas wasn't made a public holiday until 1959. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed the Hammer Corner's Christmas special, and hopefully you've learnt something new about how the Puritans cancelled Christmas. I send my best wishes to everybody watching, and I will see you all again in the new year for more numismatic content. Merry Christmas to all, and as always, keep collecting!